Good morning, everyone. Well, it's amazing this time of year here on the northern beaches of Sydney, Australia. We're just on the end of winter and starting to feel the slight drift of spring warmth floating in. Hi, I'm Carol Parr, building biology consultant, and we acknowledge the traditional owners of our land. I help people who are feeling sick and tired in their home sift through the health hazards and triggers like allergens and mold, water damage, chemicals and EMFs, and to get clarity about what's toxic and what's not, so they can create a healthy and happy home for their family they love. I do this through assessment testing and recommending sustainable and effective practices. Improve the built environment that is pleasing to the senses and support health and living in nature. Understanding the interaction between building design and occupant behaviour is a major factor, one that different occupant behaviour requires different design solutions, right? And different design solutions may in turn affect or change occupant behaviour in buildings. And on a morning like now, for us here in Sydney, we'll go and change our building environment. Some of us may open the blinds to welcome the warmth of the sun and stay warm inside, and others may open those windows and doors and really spring into the pleasure of fresh air, and some may totally be oblivious to the environment. As occupants of the built environment, we wear many hats, and one of those hats is the domestic cleaning hat. With varying degrees of proficiency in polishing and buffing and deodorizing, disinfecting and sterilizing and scouring, these are all critical. It's one of those jobs that has to be done, whether cleaning your office area, decluttering your work stuff, cleaning the keyboard or the mobile phone, dusting your favorite effigies. As designers and industry experts who create and define our built environment, we already know so much about our indoor environment, don't we? It's a breeze. We've got aircon, we're green, we're sustainable, and we'd rather be doing something else than be swept into the ritual chores of cleaning. But wait, let me just put on my gloves. But many of you may not realise how secretive indoor cleaning and air quality really is. Seriously, with all the spring cleaning to do on this list, dust will more than likely be number one. It's ubiquitous throughout the world. Let me just put on my goggles. First of all, think about if you're outsourcing your cleaning, whether you've got a professional cleaner or maybe someone else in the office or a family member, anyone else more than yourself as the cleaner. I suspect that you're distanced from cleaning, right? And may I ask those people who clean their own office at home, that is, you do all the cleaning yourself, you get right down and dusty. Great, good on you. And what sort of time do you invest in cleaning? Think about it. You or your cleaner runs around, skimps on all the corners, bypasses under the beds and behind your desk and doesn't get a look in, and you're done and dusted in no time at all. Or you plunge into that list that tick off, ticking each one as you go. Or you just look at that list and go, oh, and sheer procrastination sets in. Great, be honest now. Well, this is relevant for whichever answer came to mind. This is relevant for you, whether you clean or whether you get someone else to do the spring cleaning for you, or whether you take 5 minutes or you take all day, because whether you know it or not, everyone needs to be dressed like this. Now, excuse me while I just remove my mask, because while I chat with you, it's pretty airtight in there, and I'll just remove my gloves and goggles. You may be thinking, but what? Why? How? Dusty, toxic hazards, unsafe protection maybe? Actually, yes, wearing this gear is much bigger an issue than you realise. And the reason why this is a bigger issue is because dust is unsafe. Dust can be toxic for some, and you need to have some protection. And what we don't realise is what exists in dust. We don't see dust. That's okay. It's outside our awareness. So what we're going to show you is what, where, and what, as an occupant of the built environment, you can do and don't need to wear that outfit that I just wore. Now, that does sound good, eh? Now, just one moment. Now, who knows what's in dust? This is what we look like when we go for the dusting. In dust, look closely. Here is dust from a mattress. Anyone a bit freaked out by it? This is actually a sample we took back in 1998, a 1 meter square surface from a 5-year-old mattress over 1 minute extraction. A kilo of dust can accumulate in a carpet about 1 meter square. This is from behind one of the occupants' bed heads, where they sleep, where they rest and they heal and rejuvenate. And it's on the PowerPoints and the skirting board there. And they were sick in this home. And what about those beautiful window dressings? This is dust on the bottom of the window blinds. It has turned into mold, surface mold, but that's a different story. And soft furnishings, simply gather dust, release dust every time. There are porous materials. Dust accumulates on materials, the entryway that you can't even see. Some surfaces are more porous than other surfaces, allowing dust and moisture to attach easily. Here are the timber surfaces. The dust gets caught in those crevices where, whether it's on a window frame, exposed floorboards, even painted timbers are surrounded by those tiny little divots primed to capture dust. And inside wardrobes, behind closed doors, this is where people have their clothing. So when they pull the clothing out, they feel unwell. The dust basically gathers and awaits release when the occupants open the door and close those doors. And what about hard surfaces? This is where babies crawl. You can see the dust. Dust on the walls from the skirting boards. And right here in the window sills where we can't get to it with microfiber cloths. 98.5% of dust particles are between 0 and 1 micron in size. That's invisible to the human eye, but so very easily breathed in. Poor indoor air quality has been tied to symptoms like headaches, fatigue, trouble concentrating, irritation of the eyes and the nose and the throat and the lungs, and you can't stop coughing and you're scratching and you're itching and irritable and shortness of breath and hay fever and sinusitis and bronchitis and poor concentration, fatigue and lethargies. I was chatting with some women, as we do, and what was so surprising to all of us is that indoor dust is made up of so many things. This will gross you out. Stick with me. There's human skin cells from you and your partner. You shed a teaspoon of skin cells in bed every night, each of you. Bacteria, viruses, fungal, spores, pollen, insect parts, dust mites, they feed on these I just listed. About 50% of dust mite population live in bedding, 25% in carpets, and 25% in soft furnishings. And then there is their feces and their body parts, the cockroach body parts, the rodent excretions, the bits of plants in the soil, a plethora of fibers from all the carpets, rugs, curtains, the fancy soft decorations, the material furnishings, the bedding, the clothing. Flame retardants and water-resistant chemicals are added into mattresses and furnishings during manufacture. Pet hair from your fur and your feathered friends. VOCs such as insecticides, pesticides, herbicides, everything, particularly if you live near golf courses and open parks and ovals. What about heavy metals like lead found in old paints and asbestos when renovating those older buildings? Road dust from simply living next to the road. In your work from your home office, what about those? You're exposed to VOCs and dust particulates from photocopiers, fax machines, computer towers, paper, books, And not to forget those food crumbs, whether from those quick snacks at your desk or preparing food, or may I say it, eating on the lounge. And so how does dust get inside? Believe it or not, from outside. Most of it's tracked in on our shoes and our paws of the animals and floats in from outside through fenestrations. This is on the ceiling cornice and the wall, and it floats in and gets in between the gaps and the cracks and joining materials. And once dust is inside your space, you breathe it in and you work in it and you sleep in it. I had those women totally grossed out and falling over each other to start cleaning. In fact, you can never get rid of dust from any office, home, surface or furnishings, yet domestic masters like ourselves will significantly reduce those levels when spring cleaning. You see, the building design, it's our third skin. And what I found was that most buildings don't breathe like our natural skin. I see the unhealthy. I meet the symptomatic. I meet the unwell people, sometimes desperate to find solutions. If a building is to be sealed, which most are, then the design needs to collaborate, if you like, to remove the unhealthy and create a balanced, healthy home. It's all about the airflow, the moisture and the light between these elements, the materials and the ingredients of the products. Now let's reveal how to clean up the indoor air we breathe. Keep rooms well ventilated. Keep rooms well ventilated, whether natural or mechanical. Let's start with mechanical. Maintain and clean your air conditioners and heating appliances. I love walking into offices, and one of the first things I see is blackened diffuser vents on the ceiling. And in the homes too, the air cons with the dust in the crevices and in behind, deep inside behind the fins. You guessed it, folks, you and your family and your staff and customers are breathing that dust in. And as air is dispersed around the space, they're in the hidden particles. Design air purification and dehumidification to balance that environment. Scheduling an HVAC professional regularly is key to occupant health. Leave your shoes outside the door by designing a designated shoe and coat area. Considerably prevents particles, moisture, VOCs, and chemicals from entering the interiors. Keep pets out of bedrooms. Open windows and doors and cupboards wide. What I see is people open them just a smidge. No, open it right up wide. Why? Remember those VOCs we mentioned in the dust list? Well, they're tiny residual particles that are accumulating, potentially a health hazard for you and your family and colleagues. And what is more, fragrances and aromas when we try and get our homes clean are used to clean, and then that comes inside that home. These pervade into the materials, the gases you can't see through their space, but you can smell them. They may continue to persist for years. Unanimously with other indoor material surfaces, if designed to capture and absorb them. So we put up fly screens and close windows around dusk and dawn for an hour or so. But why, Carol, I just heard you just told us to open the windows. This is particular if you live near pollinating flora. They are the most active at this time of the day in the afternoon. So that's why we close the windows. And that's one of my greatest tips for those who are sensitive to pollens. So design windows with fly screen reduces pollen levels indoors. Open curtains and blinds and let that natural light in. You can actually see dust floating around in the sun rays. Sunlight reduces the chance of mold spores feeding on walls and furnishings. And another story for another day. So regular vacuuming of the floors with a power head and a HEPA filter once a week will help reduce dust particles and the chemical load to some extent. Normal vacuuming or using a commercial backpack has very little effect. Steam cleaning and shampooing literally turns dust into mud and adds more chemicals to the indoors you're breathing it in. Design with hard surfaces. So what we have is one of my favorite plants is the Spathiphyllum. NASA researched plants such as the peace lily and found it reduces specific contaminants from vehicle emissions in cleaning products. The group then You group them then in a laser where the laser printers are. So what can you do? Bring out that awesome master cleaner hiding in you as someone who is going to do it for you, and share the secrets to clean. So there's the spatafilium, not very good on the slide section, but experience now and get down and dusty and really get to understand what your designs can do to create healthy spaces. So why building biology? It's a life science. It truly interacts between all living things, their natural and built environment. It connects buildings and structure and material, and it integrates the environment they are built in. It balances the impact upon the health and well-being of those who occupy it, and it's comfortable, it's healthy. Building biology empowers designers to design in ways to manage moisture, thermal transfer, air and sunlight to create a comfortable, healthy, efficient buildings that cost less to operate, creating durable, high-performance buildings where people can thrive. The indoor environment needs a translator. I'm a certified building biologist, a healthy home consultant. I've designed a healthy home the size of a second dwelling from the ground up with Dick Clark and Andy Marlowe from Envirotecture. And using building biology and passive house principles, I envisage to learn and test and tweak the building environment in a healthy home compared to current 1970s home on site. The cost of building has put the project on hold. So my name is Carol Parr from Mighty Fresh Australia, and I welcome to work with designers to offer their clients truly healthy homes that ultimately provide extraordinary well-being results, health and happiness, and positively engages and motivates occupants that is pleasing to the senses and supports healthy living and nature. So what's it like at your place?
Thanks, Carol. Great presentation. I think you've scared a few people, because we've had a few people saying that they've gone out quickly to throw their mattresses out, and a couple have gone and had another shower. So,
oh, it's really cool, huh? You know, seeing it from the bottom up, seeing it from a different perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah. So look, we do have a few questions for you. What advice do you have for people living with asthma?
Okay, with asthma, so asthma is usually related to high humidity in the home, and it could be a water damage. There are two things that work with asthma. One could be high humidity from a water damage that may have occurred where there's been a water leak, or we've got lots of condensation on the windows, so then mold will attach to the condensation and feed on the dust that we just saw, and then that creates an issue for people who are highly sensitive to asthma. Second part is dust mites just love that higher humidity level, yeah? And so the dust mite population increases inside the mattresses and the soft furnishing. So my company actually started out, my name is Mighty Fresh, based on dust mites, and we can close the mattresses and we can help that person with allergy covers and look at their environment and see what they can do to improve it.
Perfect. There's a couple more questions here. What are the best products to use to remove mold?
What's the best product to remove mold? First of all, let's find out, why did the mold start? What happened? How did it come into that environment? It can be as simple as the fact that you just haven't opened the windows for a while because you've been keeping them closed, because here in Sydney, it's been winter and we've had lots of precipitation and we've had cooler climates. So, and then you warm up your house on the inside and you hit that coolness on the outside, and then we get the condensation on the windows, so then we get a mold. So is that the issue? Or is the mold the issue because you've forgotten to take your shoes off outside, brought them inside and put them inside your cupboard, and you've got moldy shoes in your cupboard? So there's all different factors there. They can give us a call and talk with us at any time.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realise how the condensation actually starts on the windows. So, I mean, it's exactly like a car. So,
yes. Yeah, exactly.
So what are the best indoor plants that you mentioned?
Spatafilium, there are 50 that NASA has actually recommended for indoor plants. And I then went, so what I do with my clients and for my own is I actually look at what plants would be great. So the Spatafilium is, sorry, just to give them all an example, Staphylium looks like that. It's got a
Yep.
nice leafy broad leaf, and it starts with a P, not an S. So Staphylium is great. So it takes out the toxins in the air. But the trick is you need quite a few of them in the home. You need to place them together. They can't work on their own. NASA decided on 15. So I've been playing around with that to see how that works.
And obviously they need a good wipe down every now and again too.
Yeah, because the soil, if the soil is imbalanced, it can then create a mold problem in the soil itself. And then you might have a mold issue. You'll have to make sure that when you water them, that the moisture doesn't go onto materials like your hard surfaces or your carpets, which I do find in homes where people have watered them diligently, but forgotten about the carpet underneath, and there's the mold issue down there.
Yeah, and look, I agree with Esther. You can't have too many indoor plants. I think it's fantastic. There's many plants out there that don't require too much sunlight, and they are awesome to have inside of buildings. We put them in a lot of buildings, whether it's residential or commercial, and to be in a lot of commercial space, we put them as dividers between desks. So it's just a nice screen, but it's also something nice to look at.
It's something very ambient, and it also calms the people down as well. The workers feel more relaxed, I find, because they're breathing in better quality air, or those perfumes that are coming through the office, or those deodorizers that are being used by the cleaners. They're absorbed. Yeah.
Now we've got another question for you. Beck's written they're great, but she struggles to keep them alive.
There's a trick.
We've got another one. When would somebody actually engage you as a consultant?
Me as a consultant as a designer for designing, or for someone that's in the home for their own home and residential, because freaked out.
I would say for both scenarios.
Also, for a designer, the best place for a designer would be to consult with me when the drawings are being drawn up and they're talking with their clients. So they've got a good idea how their clients are thinking, what the environment they would like to have. And then the client or the designer can call me in at that point to say, okay, look, Carol, we've got this. What are you thinking, and how can we tweak anything before anything actually goes up, before anything progresses further? For a person that's in a residential property that's already there and having issues, they'll already sense themselves. They'll already know that they're sick. I associate with doctors as well, where they've turned up at the doctor and found that they're very, very sick, and the puffers and the medications are not working. It's not kicking them over. So they'll come in and then say, hey, listen, what's going on with the environment? And that's when I get engaged there as well to look at. I
think a lot of people also depend on, mechanical heating and cooling, and it's not the best of quality air that's coming out of these machines. And I guess when I look at a lot of people in office spaces that don't even have windows in their spaces, I would go nuts. I know I've been in offices where people have had that same desk for 30 plus years, and I said, oh my God, you don't even have natural light coming in here. This is like a dungeon. And you could not imagine having a very productive work life in that space.
So let me help you with that. What happens is that's 4 walls, right? And the ceiling and the floor, right? And then that's made of steel and concrete. You're right. It's not only the natural light that needs to come in, it's the airflow that needs to be exchanged.
Correct.
And then we've also got EMF problems as well, because concrete and steel can create, and so you're working with your computers, it's just zinging off back and forth. So we've got then EMF, electromagnetic frequency issues with the radiation of the equipment that's in there. So people are very, very high alert. It takes about 5 years for someone to be affected. It takes about 10 years when it's very severely affected, and people cannot literally work in those places and are very unwell.
I've got some more messages here. Thanks, Carol. Such an integral part of designing healthy space for people to live in and enjoy.
Yes.
How many? I'm just going through. There's a lot of comments that are positive. So Rav's written, wonderful presentation. If you use foil sarking on the outside of buildings, call Carol to clean the air.
Well, most of the homes are like plastic bags, and we can't breathe in them. We just and then other homes are like paper bags. So it's a balance. It's a balance right at the beginning. It's right at the design stage that you need to find out. If you're going to have a multifamily dwelling where the multifamilies are inside it and they're all cooking and steaming away, you need to have extractor fans that will cope with that moisture extraction, right? But if you've got a small dwelling where it's just a couple in there, it's a totally different scenario. So it's really interesting. It's very tricky. And that's why sharing it from the perspective of occupancy is the last thing on designers' minds, really, because it's way down the track. But I think it's important to remember what's going to come into that building.
Yeah, absolutely. I think when you've said everyone's living in like a plastic bag, I think it's more like a perforated plastic bag with the amount of air leaks that the
Yes.
homes leak through. So
that's why I went to build something. I used the guys and I said, let's build something from the ground up. Let's show how we can make it a healthy building. But to do something like that and to test it, I was happy to do all of that, but the cost became quite expensive. So I've been working on and listening to costs from around the world to find out if we can do it for a small build and like a granny flat here in Australia and try it and test it against another house to show all the things that we need to do. And yeah, that's what I'm aiming for.
Yeah, and look, I've also spoken to governments and so forth about the importance of indoor plants,
Yes.
especially in the work environment.
Yeah.
And when we went to council and we put some applications in, they said that, do you have scientific evidence to prove that this is actually more beneficial? It's just ridiculous. I mean, I said, why do you need to be a scientist to understand that if you're going to look at a plant or you're going to look at a wall, that anyway, 99% of people are not going to say, hey, I don't really want to look at a plant. I prefer to get rid of the plant. I want to look at the wall. It's just crazy. So
Yes.
look, Carol, we're going to let you go. Wonderful presentation. We've got some comments about they love your job title of building biologist. It's awesome.
Thank you. Yes.
So thanks very much, Carol. If everybody would like to hang around, go get a quick cup of tea. You've got a couple more minutes before we go into our next presentation, designing for seniors with senior care environments. So we'll see everybody in 2 minutes time. Go get a cup of tea. Make sure you use the hashtag IBDD, International Building Designers Day. Good evening to everyone around the world and good morning to everyone in Australia. So thanks again, Carol. Great presentation.
Thank you.
And we'll touch base again.